Hello, and welcome to another video in the series Archaeology in Islam. My name is Dan Gibson, and if you have a question you would like to ask, you can email me at the email address at the bottom of the screen, dan@canbooks.ca. A number of viewers have asked about the Kaaba. If Petra is the first holy city of Islam, as I claim in the books and in the documentary film, The Sacred City, then where was the first Kaaba? In order to investigate this, we need to understand a number of terms and concepts. The first term is the black rock. This is a small rock less than a meter in size. It was most likely a meteorite that fell to earth, and today it's broken into 7 pieces. The second word is Kaaba. This is a rectangular building usually covered with a black cloth. One corner is exposed so that people can see and touch the black stone which has been placed in a silver holder. The third concept is Masjid al-Haram. Up until now, this has always been the mosque that housed the Black Rock in Saudi Arabia. In the film The Sacred City, I demonstrate that this was originally in the ancient city of Petra in Jordan and was rebuilt in Saudi Arabia in 98 AH, or 98 years after the Hijrah. We know this from an inscription found near Mecca. The fourth word is an Arabic word, Beit, or house. This is found in Surah 3:96. Indeed, the first house established for mankind was at Becca, blessed and a guidance for the world. According to Islamic records, Abraham built his first house of worship in the valley where he left Hagar. Now Moses the prophet tells us a slightly different story. He tells us that when Abraham first entered into the land, he built an altar at Morah, which was called Beit El, the house of God, or Bethel. It was in the time of Moses, the name for God was El. It wasn't until many years later that El would be lost among the many different gods and idols, such as Baal or Baal. So it was to emphasize El that it was made into Allah, the one God, Allah. But Moses tells us that the first house of worship was built at Morah, which Abraham renamed Bethel, or the house of God. Now modern studies tell us that we can find the original Bethel by using the old Roman milestones. Both Eusebius and Jerome located at milestone 12 out of Jerusalem on the road to Neapolis, or modern-day Nablus. So that would most likely be this hilltop in this picture. Today there are some fields at the top and a modern road across it. You can see the road is a white curving line. So what could the verse in the Quran mean when it says, the first house established for mankind was at Becca? I think the answer is this. In Quranic thought, the first house at Bethel was for the Jewish people. The second house in Quranic thought was for the rest of mankind. If that is the case, then the first house was an altar in Bethel. So therefore the second house was most likely an altar as well. We know that Abraham built altars to offer burnt offerings to God wherever he moved. Now why would Abraham build these altars? We know that he would kill a sheep and offer on it a sheep as a sacrifice. That was something that all of the prophets did. It began with Adam. Abraham did it. Moses did it. He taught the people to do it as well. David, Solomon, all of the prophets killed an animal, offered it as a sacrifice. And if we study the old accounts, we will discover that they believed that without the shedding of blood, there was no forgiveness of sin. So every place Abraham moved, he set up an altar and he offered offerings to God. And from the Islamic records, we learn that once Ishmael was a little older, as a young boy, maybe a teenager, Abraham returned to the valley of Becca, where he had left Hagar, and together with Ishmael, he built an altar. And he taught Ishmael to offer a sacrifice to God. And this place is called the House of God, and it was sacred to the Arabs for many generations in Becca. Now, in my studies, I have shown that all of the first mosques of Islam pointed to the valley of Petra, and all of the ancient descriptions of Mecca fit the valley of Petra. So, some of readers have asked, so where was the Kaaba? In the book Early Islamic Qiblas, I've tried to explain where I think all of the sites of early Islam were located in the valley. The well of Zamzam, the mountains of Safa and Marwa, as well as Mina and Mount Arafah. Now, in this video, we want to locate the Kaaba in Petra. We're just going to concentrate on the one topic. Now, first we are told that during the Second Civil War, Al-Hajjaj used a manjanik to throw stones into the holy place, and he could hit the Kaaba. Now, from this map, we can see where General Hajjaj brought the manjanik down the wadi, and from this point he could throw stones right into the holy places of Islam. Now, after this, the rebels moved to what is known as the Great Temple today, and they barricaded themselves into that temple. So those same trebuchet stones were gathered up and used to throw again against that temple. During the fighting, Ibn Zubair and his son were killed. The fighting stopped. The stones were gathered up and put into the abandoned storehouses near the Kaaba area, and there they are to this day. After this, the histories tell us that Hajjaj tried to rebuild the Kaaba. Now, if you go to Petra today, you can see the rebuilt version of this Kaaba. It's in exactly the right place, but it is in ruins. If you go to Petra and look at these ruins, you realize it's in exactly the right place, and it's exactly the right size. It's there for all to see. Earlier archaeologists have thought it was an altar for the temple, but it's right in the middle of the courtyard, the right place where the catapult stones could reach it. And for the first 100 years of Islamic history, every mosque pointed exactly to this spot. But this is Hajjaj's Kaaba. It did not have a black rock, because that had already been moved to the new Masjid al-Haram in Saudi Arabia. Now, while some people may doubt the archaeological evidence, I believe Petra is the location of the altar, the house of God that Abraham and Ishmael built, and the location of the original Kaaba, constructed by the Arabs after the earthquake in July 9, 1551. 19 years before the Prophet Muhammad was born. Then the people brought all the religious items out of their temples and out of the churches into this courtyard where nothing could fall on them, and the earthquakes that happened afterwards. And that created the Kaaba, the place where 360 holy relics were all in one courtyard. People started to walk in circles so they could pray in front of all of the religious objects. And then one day, while they were rebuilding the Kaaba, the people chose a young man named Muhammad to lift the black rock into place. And that began the story of Islam. And it all happened here in Petra. If you want more information, please check the book Early Islamic Qiblas. I'm Dan Gibson, and this has been another edition in the series of Archaeology and Islam. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.